From the Telesur headquarters in Caracas, Venezuela, welcome back to From the South. I am Luis de Jesus. Let's take a look at our headlines. Jamaica's Prime Minister Andrew Holmes announces next general elections will be held on early September. Russia has registered the first world's coronavirus vaccine and it's planning to start massive production before the end of the year. And U.S. presidential candidate Joe Biden named Kamala Harris, a black senator from California, as his running mate for vice president. Stay with us. Jamaica's Prime Minister Andrew Holmes announced the new dates for the nomination process and the elections for the next government.
And two, Tuesday, the 18th day of August 2020 is appointed as nomination day. This notice has been gazetted today, Tuesday, the 11th day of August 2020. Consequently, the date fixed for the taking of the polls, that is the general elections for the year 2020, is therefore Thursday, September the 3rd, 2020. Mr. Speaker, we will be quick. We will be efficient. We will be peaceful.
In Trinidad and Tobago, the opposition United National Congress Party has called for a recount of votes in 5 electoral districts, questioning the official preliminary statement of results from the Elections and Boundary Commission. The party leadership announced that the commission is facilitating the recounts in the disputed electoral districts. The ruling People's National Movement, led by Prime Minister Kate Rowley, declared itself the winner of the general elections following the preliminary results issued by the electoral body. And a former director of Mexico's state-owned oil company Pemex, Emilio Lozoya, has testified that former President Enrique Peña Nieto and his Secretary of Foreign Affairs accepted bribes of at least $4 million from Brazilian construction giant Odebrecht to finance the 2012 presidential campaign. Eduardo Martinez has more.
Greetings. Today, former director of Mexican Petroleum Pemex, the Mexican state oil company, went to the Attorney General's office to denounce Enrique Peña Nieto, the former president of Mexico, and his foreign minister Luis Videgaray for having used illicit resources of about $4 million from the Brazilian company Odebrecht. Let us remember that this Brazilian company has had many difficulties due to having been distributing bribes throughout the region of Latin America, and Mexico was not the exception. In this case, there is already a direct accusation to the former president Enrique Peña Nieto of having used those resources of illicit origin. Former director of Pemex, Emilio Lozoya, had escaped from Mexico. However, last February, he was arrested in Spain. It was after the Secretary of Foreign Relations of that country met all the requirements that he was extradited to Mexico a few weeks ago, where he has not been put in prison and arrived as a cooperating witness, and is already given the information which he acknowledged as former official of Enrique Peña Nieto. This Tuesday, the Attorney General Alejandro Gertz Manero unveiled this information through a video, adding that Emilio Lozoya has also presented a videographic material in which this evidence is shown, also addressing to 4 witnesses regarding these events. Yet, Emilio Lozoya not only has to be accountable to the authorities for the case of Odebrecht, but also to have committed acts of corruption in the purchase of a fertilizer plant in scrap conditions at a cost of $200 million. President Manuel López Obrador has been very attentive to this whole process that involved the former president, an important part of high-level officials, and also the director of the Mexican Petroleum Pemex. President López Obrador pointed out that this type of events serve to expose all the white-collar crime that exists and harm Mexicans through neoliberal governments. Also, that these illicit resources were used to buy the votes and wills of legislators for the approval of structural reform, such as the energy reform that allowed the privatization of the industry of petroleum of this country.
Thank you to Eduardo Martinez for that report. And analysts have warned that Colombian President Iván Duque's position on the case against Senator and former President Álvaro Uribe Vélez has overstepped the limits of his executive powers. Our correspondent Hernán Tovar has the story.
The Supreme Court order of putting Uribe under house arrest has sparked criticism from the executive and deepens the polarization of the already divided Colombian society.
I am calling for a great national reflection. What am I asking for? Let's forget about this specific case. Let's talk about the citizens' rights to the presumption of innocence. And this presumption of innocence should guarantee the right to defend himself while being free. I have always believed this.
Political activists consider Duque's position is not part of his role. They believe that it becomes a pressure on the judges of the Supreme Court of Justice, and they will take legal actions ahead of any potential bias on this case.
President Duque has been making statements that limits the judiciary independence. He instructs the court on how it should act, what should be the purpose of its actions, and that interference, because it is indeed an interference, of the independence of the powers of the judiciary violates the balance among the public powers. We believe this should have an international scope, so that the world knows that a violation of a fundamental principle of the rule of law is happening in Colombia. That is why we are considering what will be the international organization that we will involve in this matter in the following days.
Analysts point out that the executive and the official Democratic Center Party's stance seeks to impose a media and political narrative in which Uribe is seen as an alleged victim.
Turning the court's decision into a media campaign about the scope of its decisions may take into account a comprehensive research process, and in which there is no evidence of any lack of impartiality, constitutes an inadmissible aggression to the rule of law. What they are trying to do is to impose an agenda in which Uribe is a victim of political persecution. They want to question the judiciary branch, the standing of the court, because they know, they are aware of the fact that they will accomplish nothing if they do follow the rule of law, and that is why they are betting all to the political side of this case.
In this context, the defense of Senator Uribe has requested to know more of the case file, although analysts claim that this is not possible because what they want is to contaminate the action of the judges with undue pressures or with undue procedures outside the Constitution. They strongly believe that this constitutes a mechanism to attack the authority of the Supreme Court of Justice.
And more about Colombia, the National Electoral Council opened an investigation against President Iván Duque related to the financing of the electoral campaign for the presidency during the period 2018-2022. The electoral body preliminary investigations against the campaign of the current president also addresses the campaign manager Luis Guillermo Echeverri Vélez and the Democratic Center political party. The inquiries respond to the alleged violation of the electoral rules on the financing of political campaigns, review indifferent complaints, including the findings in the investigation of former President Álvaro Uribe Vélez. The Special Investigative Commission will analyze the allegations and evidence submitted in connection with the alleged purchase of votes by President Duque. In Bolivia, social and trade union movements continue mobilizations as part of a general strike following the postponement of general elections. The protests have been ongoing for 9 days. Protesters are calling for the resignation of the de facto regime of Yanine Áñez while rejecting the threats issued by the authorities to clear them from the streets. The movement is calling for the elections to be held as previously agreed on September 6th after the Electoral Tribunal postponed the vote to October 16th. The move was seen as yet another attempt by the de facto regime to cling on to power.
We are coming to block routes. They don't give us anything here. This de facto government repressed us last night. It has launched tear gas, together with motorcycle guns. What does this woman want? We have already told her, the entire Bolivian people, to leave, to step down. She doesn't resign but has vowed tear gas but nothing to economize Bolivia. She just wants to steal our lithium. There is no longer any gas. What will become of us? If she had even little shame, she will step down. She makes Bolivia look bad. We want her to resign.
We want to denounce from El Alto to the whole world that they are starving us to death, that the government minister threatened us with the nail bullets for 6 months. He said that he has purchased tear gas, pellets, military weapons in order to repress the Bolivian people for 6 months. There are no medical supplies, no biosecurity materials, no ventilators. They are stealing the money for the ventilators. We are blocking roads because we want free education for our children, we want health services for our families, we want stability, and we want work in our country.
And we'll go now to a short break. Follow us on Twitter at Telesur English and Luis Telesur. We'll be right back. Russian President Vladimir Putin announced on Tuesday that Russia had registered the world's first vaccine against the novel coronavirus. Putin said the vaccine is effective and provides immunity against the deadly virus, which has spread globally. So far, more than 20 countries have requested 1 billion doses of the vaccine. Meanwhile, Putin insisted that vaccination in Russia should only be carried out on voluntary basis. He also revealed that one of his daughters has already been vaccinated. According to reports, the Russian vaccine will be distributed internationally by January 2021.
Насколько мне известно, сегодня
As far as I know, this morning, for the first time in the world, a vaccine against the new coronavirus was registered, and it is quite effective. It gives sustainable immunity. I know this very well too, because one of my daughters had herself such a vaccination. In this sense, she took part in the experiment. What counts most is for us to be able to ensure the unconditional safety of the use of this vaccine and its efficiency in the future. I hope that this will be accomplished.
Our correspondent in Moscow, Lisandra Andres, has more details.
Undoubtedly, the good news of the day is the announcement of the first vaccine against COVID-19 in Russia. The announcement was made by President Vladimir Putin in a meeting with the government where they explained the safety of the process held to develop the vaccine, far from being a race against time. By contrast, the country had begun the development of a medicine and cure against COVID-19 since January, before there were any case of contagious report. Today, the vaccine was registered by the Ministry of Defense along with the Gamaleya Research Institute, according to the scientists that work for the development of the vaccine. This will guarantee immunity for over 2 years, and it will be applied via double injection system, which guarantee that the immune response in the body extends for a long period of time. More than 20 countries have requested Russia to deliver around 1,000 million doses, while this country is expected to produce 500 million doses in a year. Also, this Tuesday's announcement is good news for the Latin American region, as a coordination is being made by the Russian Direct Investment Fund with different governments in the region, including Brazil and also Cuba. The Russian Direct Investment Fund said that right now the vaccines regulators are in direct contact with the authorities of the Caribbean island to begin the production of this vaccine in Cuba from November, taking into account the island's extensive experience in the development of the biopharmaceutical field. The first to receive this treatment between the end of August and the beginning of September will be the medical staff who are most exposed to this disease, followed by teachers to guarantee the restart of the school year in the upcoming month of September. The Russian president also said that the vaccination process in the country will be completely free and will be a voluntary process once the mass vaccination of the population begins likely in October.
Lisandra Andres from Moscow with the report. And shortly after the Russian release of their COVID-19 medicine, the United States President Donald Trump announced this Tuesday a $1.5 billion contract for the manufacturing of 100 million doses of experimental vaccine manufactured by the U.S. laboratory Moderna. Trump stated that they are ready to produce 100 million doses as soon as the shots are approved. This would be the sixth contract of this type made between the U.S. government and the pharmaceutical area. U.S. government has invested $2.480 billion in Moderna. No other company has ever received so much money from Washington. The agreement now boosts U.S. public investment in Moderna, a biotechnology company founded less than a decade ago and one that has never created a vaccine before. And Mexico's foreign secretary said the government has agreements with 3 companies to carry out advanced clinical trials for potential COVID-19 vaccines in Mexico this fall.
Regarding the vaccine for COVID-19, I can inform you of good news today. We have an understanding with 3 different companies, one from the United States, 2 from China. It's called understanding because it's a memoranda of understanding. The objective is that what is called Phase 3 of the clinical protocol of these vaccines or possible vaccines is carried out in Mexico. This is very good news because there are 3 Phase 3 protocols for every advanced projects, which is what President López Obrador is concerned about, that we have it, a vaccine for COVID-19 on time.
And Vice President of Communication of Venezuela, Jorge Rodriguez, reported the new cases of contagion by COVID-19 in the country.
In the last 24 hours, Venezuela must report today, August 11, 2020, a total of 1,008 cases of community transmission. Of those 1,008 cases of community transmission, 25%, or 253 cases, correspond to the capital of the Republic, the capital districts.
On Tuesday, Cuban authorities provided an update on the epidemiological situation surrounding the novel coronavirus in the island.
As a result of the analysis of these 4,054 samples, 47 people tested positive for COVID-19 in our country yesterday. Following this pattern of testing and diagnosis, 305,652 samples have been tested, and 3,093 people have been diagnosed with the disease.
And Dr. Duran also noted that the coronavirus and mortality rate in Cuba has fallen to 2.84%.
We do not have to regret the death of any person with the disease for 7 days. The death toll stands at 88 in our country. That makes the mortality rate in Cuba 2.84%. Note that with this behavior we have been decreasing from 3 to 2.84%.
Authorities in New Zealand have reinforced COVID-19 restrictions in the northern city of Auckland, while moving the rest of the country to alert level 2 after 4 new coronavirus cases from an unknown source were reported on Tuesday.
The fact that we have some contact with the family that have been identified as having COVID, having travelled to another region, reinforces why the whole country has moved to alert level 2, and that is that, of course, everyone across the country outside of Auckland, we're asking for social distancing, we're asking for those limits on mass gatherings again.
And we have more news coming up after this final short break. Stay with us. U.S. presidential hopeful Joe Biden on Tuesday named Kamala Harris, a black senator from California, as his running mate for vice president. Biden announced the decision on Twitter, describing Harris as a fearless fighter for the little guy and one of the country's finest public servants. The move capped a months-long search for a Democratic partner to challenge President Donald Trump in November. Biden's team reported that the 2 Democrats will deliver remarks on Wednesday in Wilmington, Delaware, as they kick off their election campaign. Harris is the first African American and South Asian American woman to be chosen as the running mate of a major U.S. party's presidential candidate. And President Donald Trump has stated he was a little surprised that his Democratic rival Joe Biden selected Kamala Harris as his running mate. Trump told reporters at a White House briefing that Harris was very disrespectful to Joe Biden during the Democratic primaries. Trump attempted to paint Harris as too far left, saying she wants to raise taxes, slash funds for the military, and ban fracking. However, just a month ago, Trump said Harris would be a fine choice for vice president. And thousands marched in Lebanon's capital, Beirut, on Tuesday to pay tribute to the victims of the devastating blast that took place last week. According to local authorities, the blast killed over 200 people and injured some 7,000, while more than 300,000 residents were made homeless. A moment of silence was observed at 15:09 local time this Tuesday to pay tribute to the victims, while hundreds of protesters once again stormed the parliament building, chanting slogans against the political elite. Although Lebanese Prime Minister Hassan Diab announced his government's resignation on Monday, many Lebanese are demanding the formation of an independent cabinet not supported by any of the traditional political parties. Congolese authorities have announced the reopening of air borders starting August 24th as the country seeks to recover from the economic impact of the coronavirus pandemic. The announcement was made by the National Coordination Board on COVID-19 Pandemic Response. Meanwhile, Congolese authorities have gradually lifted restrictions, including the reopening of shops, banks, restaurants, bars, schools, and universities. Health authorities have reported over 3,700 COVID-19 cases and a death toll of 60. And the French Prime Minister has vowed that justice will be served after the murder of 6 young French aid workers, as well as their driver and local guide, in an attack in Niger on Sunday.
The victims are civilians, young people engaged in humanitarian work, who were therefore working in the service of others, in a spirit of cooperation and closeness to the people of this country. I therefore extend my particular heartfelt condolences to their families, loved ones and colleagues. France, as the President of the Republic has said, will ensure that this heinous crime against our compatriots does not go unpunished.
And we've come now to the end of this news brief. You can find this and many other stories at our website at telesurenglish.net. And also remember that you can find this and you can join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Luis de Jesus. Thank you for watching.